Hi and welcome back to this Greek 1A class. In this video clip I'm going to work through the translation exercises from exercise 9 in Mounce's workbook. We're going to do the first 10 translation exercises together. So we begin with number 1, which says "Ho logos krineauton ente eschate hemera." I'll read it again. "Ho logos krineauton ente eschate hemera." Typically we begin by looking for a verb. We are given the verb here, it is krine, which Mounce tells us means he, she or it will judge. So I'll type in "it will judge." We then look for a noun in the nominative case that might be functioning as the subject of the verb, and we found it over here. Ho logos. Ho logos, you know, means the word. So we can replace the it with the word. So we've got ho logos krine, the word will judge. The next thing we're going to look for is a noun in the accusative case that might be functioning as the direct object of the verb. And once again, we are going to find that over here, auton. Auton is the masculine accusative singular of autos, and it means him. Ho logos krine auton, the word will judge him. Then we have a prepositional phrase governed by the preposition en, which you know by now means in, and always takes a dative case. This is confirmed since te eschate hemera is dative. All three words are in the dative case. Te hemera means the day, and eschate is an adjective meaning last, in the last day. So we have the word will judge him in the last day. Ho logos krineauton ente eschate hemera. Notice that the adjective eschate is placed between the article te and its noun hemera. This means it functions as an attributive adjective, which is expressed in our translation as the last day. We move now to number 2. En de hora trite kai estaurosan auton. En de hora trite kai estaurosan auton. Once again, we're going to work through this in the normal way. We're going to begin, however, by noting the particle de. The particle de functions as a conjunction. Remember that it's always post-positive. It occurs as the second word, typically, in its clause, which we can see here. It means and, even, or but, or even now sometimes. So for now, let's translate it as and. Next, we look for a verb, and the verb here is ein. Ein is the imperfect, that is past tense form, of Amy or esti. So ein here means it was. And it was hora trite. Hora trite means third hour. Hora is the noun meaning hour. So literally it's hour third. Kai and estaurosan auton. Estaurosan means they crucified. Mounce tells us that. Auton, as in the previous one, him. So we've got a rough literal translation saying, and it was the third hour, and they crucified him. Or it was our third. That's pretty poor English. So we would modify that to say it was the third hour, and they crucified him. Looks like de might mean now. Now it was the third hour, and they crucified him. The third sentence, ho pater egere tus necrus. Ho pater egere tus necrus. We begin as always by looking for the verb. We are given the verb. It is he, she, or it raises. Next we look for the subject. Here we have it as ho pater. Ho pater is the father. Even if you did not know that pater is nominative, masculine and singular, you can work this out from the article ho, which goes with it, which you know is nominative masculine and singular. So we've got the father raises. Then we have tus necrus. Necrus is an adjective meaning dead. Typically an adjective modifies a noun, but in this case there's no noun that necrus is modifying. In other words, necrus is functioning as a noun. This is called the substantival use of an adjective. It takes the article tus, which means the dead. Necrus is masculine, accusative, and plural. So we've got something like the father raises the dead, and there's an implied ones, or possibly if you knew all the people being raised were male gender, you could say the dead men. Ha pater egere tus necrus. The father raises the dead ones. Number 4. Ho theoron ton hion kai pistuon esauton eche zoen ionion kai anastaso auton ego ente eschate hemera. I'll read that again for you as a whole sentence. Ho theoron ton hion kai pistuon esauton eche zoen ionion kai anastaso auton ego ente eschate hemera. Let's begin again by looking for our finite verb. It's a little bit concealed in this sentence because it occurs roughly midway through the sentence. It is eche, which Mounce tells us means he, she, or it has. I'm going to just translate it for now as he has. Next we look for nouns in the nominative case. And this one is a little bit complex because we have ho theoron. You know that ho is nominative masculine singular. Theoron is a participle, which we haven't covered yet. Participles are adjectival verbs. They're a combination of verbs and adjectives, and often they function as nouns in sentences, which is the case here. Ho theoron is the one who sees, and it takes a direct object in the accusative case, ton hion. So we've got the one who sees the sun. Kai pistuon es auton. Pistuon, who believes. Kai, you know, means and. We continue that. And believes es auton, in him. I've made a bit of a mess of that. This needs to go further back. So we have literally the one who sees the sun and believes in him has. Next we look for a direct object. It's typically something in the accusative case. It's going to be the direct object of the verb has. And we find it over here, zoen. Zoen means life. The one who sees the sun and believes in him has life. And the word life is modified by an adjective that is also feminine, singular, accusative, ionion, literally meaning eternal. So we have the one who sees the sun and believes in him has life eternal. That is ho theoron ton hion kai pistuon es auton eche zoen ionion. And then there's a second part of the sentence after the comma, kai anastaso. Mounce tells you the verb means I will raise. Ego is the nominative singular, meaning I. Now that's interesting because anastaso already has the subject I embedded within it. So by putting the pronoun ego in the nominative case, there's some emphasis on I will raise. To make that in my English translation, I'm just going to put the I in italics. Kai anastaso ego auton, Kai anastaso auton, you know this means him. Ego ente eschate hemera. We've already seen this. En is a preposition, takes the dative case, te eschate hemera, the last day, where eschate is an adjective in the attributive position. I trust that all makes sense. Question number 5. Me niko hupotukaku. Ala nika ento agatho to kakon. This one's a little bit tricky. I'm going to read it again. Me niko hupo tu kaku, ala nika ento agatho to kakon. We have a verb that's an imperative. Mounce indicates this by putting an exclamation mark after the word conquered. It is be conquered. So let's start by typing in the verb that we are given. Be conquered. You'll notice that be conquered is a passive verb. May is the negative. So this means do not be. Do not be conquered. Hupo tu kaku. Hupo is a preposition which, when it goes with a genitive, typically means by and frequently indicates an agent of something. So we're going to translate it here as by. Hupo tu kaku. Kaku is the genitive masculine singular form of kakos. Kakos is an adjective that means bad or evil. Typically an adjective would modify a verb, but a noun, but there's no noun that kaku is modifying. Therefore, kaku is functioning as a noun. It's being used substantively. This is confirmed by the presence of the article with kaku, and we can simply translate, do not be conquered by evil. Not really correct to put the article the in the English translation. Allah, you know, means but. Nika, conquer, that's our verb again in the second part of the sentence. But conquer, ento agatho, tokakon. Tokakon, you can see is neuter because the adjective is neuter. It's neuter singular from kakos and means either that it is accusative or possibly nominative. In this case, the subject who is being told to conquer is you, so it's likely that it is not the subject of the verb conquer, but rather the direct object. So tokakon here is, once again, a substantival use of the article kakos, meaning evil. And we can see that it's the direct object of the verb conquer, so it's but conquer the evil, or just evil in English, ento agatho. The word en, although it normally means in, sometimes also means by and indicates the instrument by which something is performed. And that would be its meaning here. So, but conquer the evil, ento agatho, by the good. Agathos is the adjective meaning good, which here too is being used as a substantival article, and we would probably take out the article in English. So our sentence reads, do not be conquered by evil, but conquer evil by good. Number 6. Esontai hoi eschatoi, protoi, kai hoi protoi eschatoi. There are a lot of adjectives in this sentence. Let me read that again. Esontai hoi, Esontai hoi eschatoi, protoi, kai hoi protoi eschatoi. The verb here is esontai, and it means they will be. We look for a subject, which is going to be a noun in the nominative case. Remember that will be, the verb amy, typically will take a subject in the nominative case, but also a predicate nominative. It will not take an accusative direct object. So we're going to expect to find both the subject and the predicate nominative in the nominative case. What we find is hoi eschatoi. Eschatos is the article meaning last. There is no noun that it's modifying, so it must be functioning as a noun. It's taking the the article, hoi. We know that it is masculine accusative, plural. Masculine nominative, plural. So hoi eschatoi means the last, and it is functioning as the subject of esontai. So we're going to have the last will be protoi, from protos means first, Kai means and. Hoi protoi, notice that it's simply switched around. Now the subject is hoi protoi. It's implied that we've got a repeat of esontai, even though the word itself has been left out. This is called ellipsis. So, and the first will be left out last. Esontai hoi eschatoi protoi, kai hoi protoi eschatoi. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Question number 10. Rusetai, that means he, she, or it will rescue. We've got Rusetai me hokurios apopantos ergu poneru kai sose esten basilean autu ten epuranion. Let me read that again. Rusetai me hokurios apopantos ergu poneru kai sose me esten basilean autu ten epuranion. We begin as ever by looking for a verb. It's found at the very beginning of the sentence. Rusetai, which Mounce tells us means he, she, or it will rescue. So I'm going to say he will rescue. Next we look for the subject, typically something in the nominative case. We don't have to look too far. There is hokurios. So the he in question is hokurios, which means the Lord. Direct object, again, we don't have to look too far. Here it is, me, one of the easier ones in Greek, means me. So, rusetai me hokurios, the Lord will rescue me. Apo, preposition meaning from. Apo, pantos ergu poneru. Pantos ergu poneru, remember that apo will take a genitive, take its following nouns in the genitive case. So, rusetai me hokurios apo pantos ergu poneru. Indeed, pantos ergu poneru is all in the genitive case. Ergu, work, is a noun. So from, let's type it in, work. Poneru is an adjective modifying ergu. Poneru from poneros, meaning evil. So work evil, or in better English, evil work. Pantos means all or every. So we're going to have, the Lord will rescue me from every evil work. Rusetai me hokurios apopon pantos ergu poneru. And kai, new sentence or next sentence, it's a compound sentence. So say, he will save. Esten basilean autu ten epu ranion. He will save. There's no direct object of save. It's implied that it's still me from the first clause. The Lord will rescue me from every evil work, and he will save who? Me. Ace normally means into. Ten basilean autu. Ten basilean, you know, means the kingdom. Autu is of him. And then we've got, notice the case, ten basilean, ten epuranion. If we didn't have the autu in the middle, we would have, let me delete it so that you can just see this. We would have a classic example of an attributive adjective where you've got article, noun, article, adjective. Ten basilean, ten epuranion, the kingdom, the heavenly one. The fact that we have our two in the middle doesn't change anything. It's the kingdom of him, the heavenly. Of course, that is terrible English. So in reality, we're going to say into his heavenly kingdom. It's perfectly good Greek, but not such good English, so we convert it into better English. Let's recap. Rusetai me hokurios apopantos ergu poneru. The Lord will rescue me from every evil work. Kai sose esten basilean autu ten epuranion. And he will save me, left out, into his heavenly kingdom. Number 8. Let's read it. Menate, that's remain as a command. Menate ente agape te eme. Ean tas entolas mu te resete. Menete ente agape mu. Kathos ego tas entolas tu patros mu te tereka. Kai meno au tu ente agape. Haute esti he entole he eme hina agapate alelus kathos agape se humas. This is quite a mouthful for somebody who's not comfortable reading the language. Let me read it again and then we'll work through it section by section. Menate ente agape te eme. Ean tas entolas mu te resete, menete ente agape mu. Kathos ego tas entolas tu patros mu te tereka, kai meno au tu ente agape. Haute estin he entole he eme, hina agapate, alelus kathos agape sa humas. This is a combination of sentences with similar themes and vocabulary. We're going to work through them section by section. So we begin with the opening verb, menate, which means remain as a commandment. It's a second person plural command form. So remain. Typically we would look for the subject of a verb, but an imperative doesn't have an express subject. It's addressed to somebody. We could look for the direct object, typically in the accusative case, but there isn't one in this instance. So we move directly to the prepositional phrase ente agape te eme. Eme is an adjective. En, as you know, typically governs a dative and means in most of the time. Sometimes it means by, but typically it means in. So remain ente agape, in the love, te eme, the mine, if we translate literally. Te agape, te eme is an attributive adjective construction. So the noun te agape followed by the article and then the adjective gives you an attributive adjective. It's equivalent to saying in te eme agape. And in English we would say this as remain in my love. We move to the second sentence. Ean tas entolas mu te resete, menete ente agape mu. Let's do just that part. Ean means if. It's the conjunction. Ean means if, and it goes with the verb te resete, you keep. Once again, we can look for a subject in the nominative case. There isn't one, so we infer that the subject embedded in the verb is the subject, you in this instance. So we've got if you keep. Then we look for the direct object, accusative case, and we have it here. Tas entolas mu. Tas entolas. Entole is a commandment. Tas entolas is the feminine accusative plural. The commandments. Tas entolas. Mu is of me, comma. So if you keep the commandments of me, menete, you will remain, Mounce gives us that much, you will remain ente agape mu. You will remain ente agape mu, and again, in with the dative, te agape mu, the love of me. Kathos, kathos means just as. Kathos, ego tas entolas tu patros mu te tereka. Let's just begin as usual with our verb. It's te tereka, just as I have kept. We look for a nominative in this clause. Kathos ego tas entolas tu tu patros mu te tereka. There is a nominative. It is the pronoun ego. You know by now that you don't have to use ego in order to indicate that the subject is I. So when ego appears, it has some measure of emphasis upon it. We will show that once again by putting I in italics. Just as I have kept the commandments of my Father. Let's go back. Sorry, I've scrolled down a bit too far. Kathos ego te tereka, just as I have kept. We look for the accusative. Here it is, tas entolas. We've already seen this in the sentence. It means the commandments. Tas entolas, feminine accusative plural. Tas entolas tu patros mu. Tu patros is a genitive. You can tell that from the article even if you do not know the word patros. And it means of the Father, of me. Since this is Jesus speaking, we'll capitalize his reference to Father. Just as I have kept the commandments of the Father of me, kai and meno, I remain. This is the verb in a new clause. Autu ente agape. All right. Autu is a genitive. It's presumably modifying something, but it's in a different word position to what you would expect. Let's carry on straight to the dative case. In te agape, you should know, means in the love. And now it's easy to see that autu, meaning of him, is modifying agape, in the love of him. Let's quickly go back and just correct some of the English here because we've got some awkward expressions. So Jesus said, remain in my love. If you keep the commandments of me, we would prefer to put that in English as my commandments. You will remain in the love of me. We would prefer to put that in my love. Just as I have kept the commandments of the Father of me, once again, of my Father, and I remain in the love of him, i.e. in his love. Perfect. That's perfectly good English. Haute estin he entole he eme. Haute estin he entole he eme. Haute is the feminine singular of hutos, and it means this. Estin is he entole he eme, the commandment of, well, literally the commandment, the my one. He entole he eme, attributive adjective. Remember, article, noun, article, adjective is an attributive adjective. So I'm just going to convert it to, this is my commandment. Hina agapate alelus kathos agapesa humas. This is my commandment. Hina means that. That. Agapate, we are told, means you love. Alelus is the accusative plural form, and it means one another. Hina agapate alelus, that you love one another. Kathos, just as. Agapesa, we are told, means I loved. Humas is you. That's been a mouthful, but I think that you have probably been able to follow most, if not all, of the translation. Let's read it again in its entirety and then follow the translation as we go clause by clause. Menate ente agape te eme means remain in my love. Eantas entolas mu te resete, if you keep the commandments of me, my commandments. Menete ente agape mu, you will remain in my love. Kathos, just as, egotas entolas tu patros mu te tereka, I have kept the commandments of my Father. Kai meno autu te agape, ente agape, and I remain in his love. Haute estin he entole he eme, this is my commandment. Hina agapate, alelus kathos agapesa humas, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. Well done if you've stayed the course with that one and got it right. Just the sheer length is a little bit intimidating. We move on to question number 9. Autogar esmen poema, ktistentes en Christo Jesu epi ergois, agathois, hois pro etoimasen ho theos hina en autois peripa teisomen. I'll read that again. It's Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. Autogar esmen poema, ktistentes en Christo Jesu epi ergois agathois, hois pro etoimasen ho theos hina en autois peripa teisomen. Once again, we take it from the top. We have the post-positive conjunction gar, which means for. We'll type that in to start. For, now we look for a verb. There it is, esmen, and you know it means we are. We would look for a subject in the nominative case. There isn't one, so we assume that the subject is the embedded we in the verb esmen. So we is the subject for we are. Autou poema. Poema, we are told, is the word for workmanship. And in this instance, even though gar esmen appear in between them, autou is actually a genitive modifying poema. So it's autou poema. We are autou poema. We are workmanship of him or his workmanship. One may wonder why the word autou is mysteriously placed at the very beginning of this sentence. It wouldn't be natural or completely normal to do so, and probably the author is trying to place some stress on the word autou by putting it at the very head of the sentence, maybe emphasizing the fact we are his workmanship. In English, we would possibly express this by underlining the word his or putting it in italics, as I've just done. For we are his workmanship, comma, ktistentes, we are told, means created, en Christo Jesu. En with the dative normally means in. En Christo Jesu, in Christ Jesus. Epi, once again we are told, means for. Epi, ergois agathois. Ergois is from ergon, and it means a work. Ergois is the dative plural form. So, epi ergois means for works, and agathois, also dative plural, is an adjective from agathos, meaning good, and it is governing ergois. So, ergois agathois, works, plural, good, or in better English, for good works. Autogar esmen poema, for we are his workmanship, ktistentes en Christo Jesu, created in Christ Jesus, epi ergois agathois, for good works. Hois. Hois means which. It's modifying works, because it too is dative plural. Hois. Pro etoimasen. We are told this is a verb meaning he prepared beforehand. So the verb means he prepared beforehand. What do we look for next? Answer, the subject. We're looking for a nominative, and there it is. Ho theos. So the he who prepared them is ho theos, and we know that means God, which God prepared beforehand, comma, hina, that, en autois peripa teisomen, we do the verb first, that we might walk, en autois, shouldn't be difficult for you at all, in them. Let's read it all together. Autogar esmen poema, for we are his workmanship, ktistentes en Christo Jesu, created in Christ Jesus, epi ergois agathois, for good works, hois pro etoimasen, which he prepared in advance, who, ho theos, God, hina en autois peripatesomen, in order that we might walk in them. Not so difficult, is it? Who told you Greek was difficult? So far, so good. last, number 10. Ho agathos anthropos ek tu agathu thesauru ek bale agatha. Kai ho poneros anthropos ek tu poneru thesauru ek bale ponera. Let me read that again. Ho agathos anthropos ek tu agathu thesauru ek bale agatha. Kai ho poneros anthropos ek tu poneru thesauru ek bale ponera. As usual, we start with a verb. Let's look for it. There it is. Ek bale. And Mounce tells us it means he brings out. He, she, or it brings out. In context, we're going to see that it's actually he. Next, we look for the subject. So who is the he in question? We're looking for a nominative noun. The article is often a standout clue. So he has a nominative masculine singular article, ho, and it construes with anthropos. Ho anthropos is the man. But here we have ho agathos anthropos. Agathos is an adjective. It would typically modify a noun. And notice here that it is placed between ho, the article, and anthropos, the noun. So it's placed in the attributive position, and it means the good man. Ho agathos anthropos, the good man. Brings out ek tu agathu thesauru. Thesauru is treasure, and you have learned already that ek is a preposition meaning out of. All right, so we've got the good man brings out. Now it's going to be a bit redundant. Out of tu agathu thesauru. Remember, ek takes the genitive case, which is what we have here. Tu thesauru, the treasure. And once again, notice that agathu, over here, the middle word, is between the article and the noun that it's modifying, so it is the good treasure. So the good man brings out of the good treasure, agatha. What does he bring out? Agatha. Agatha is from agathos, and you may have some difficulty recognizing that it is actually a neuter plural accusative form. And it means good things. It's used as a substantive here. Good things. Even though it doesn't have a noun, it's used substantively. So we've got the rather awkward phrase, ho agathos anthropos ek tu agathu thesauru ek bale agatha. He brings out good things. Let's try to make some sense of this. We've got the good man brings out. Firstly, let's put the direct object there, which is where it belongs. He brings out good things. He brings out good things from where? From or out of the good treasure. And kai, we're over here, ho poneros anthropos ek tu poneru thesauru ek bale ponera. This sentence is almost identical to the first one, the preceding one, except that wherever you had agathos, you now have poneros. But essentially it's the same. The verb is ek bale, which we know means he brings out. Let's take those all together. He brings out. Who's the subject? There he is. Ho poneros anthropos, the evil man. So the he is the evil man. Brings out what? Ponera, just like agatha. Ponera is evil things. Out of ek, out of tu thesauru, tu poneru thesauru, out of the evil treasure. We're lacking a little bit of context to make perfect sense of that one, but more or less that's what it is. Okay, I hope that you found working through those translation exercises helpful. You should be following the method that we're using and finding it probably, for the most part, relatively easy to follow. We're going to do the 10 supplementary or additional translation exercises in a separate video clip. God bless you as you continue your study of Biblical Greek, and hopefully through it, a deeper understanding of the New Testament.